Superstition of the Stars. I just recorded the class lecture, and a lot of people asked me to do this next thing. I thought I'd record both of these things at the same time. Uh, this Sabine Hassenpfeffer person had a video which I'm going to explain to you in a minute, and I had several people ask me to comment on this. So I have a post about this at wmbriggs.com, wmbriggssubstack.com. You can go and look. I'll have links in the video description below. And I thought I would comment on it real briefly here, and I have an article about it too. Apparently, she had yet another video in which she called out bad science. She called it pseudoscience. I don't like the name pseudoscience. It's a perfectly reasonable name. I don't have a lot of truck with it or anything like this, but I prefer the name bad or broken science because there's sort of a famous incident in philosophy where a lot of people spent a lot of time on what they called the demarcation problem, trying to find a line we can draw. Everything to the right over here is real science, and everything to the left over here is pseudoscience. And it turns out you can't draw such a line. And of course, it all comes back to the same kind of lessons I teach you in probability and so forth. It depends on what your premises are and all this kind of a thing. So I like good and bad science. It's bad science to the extent it can't make predictions, and it gives you no indication of the true cause underlying whatever events you're interested about. That's it. And the better you get at that, the better and better the science becomes. Simple as that. I think that's a better way to put it. That way everything is on a gradation, you know, from absolutely dismal to perfection. And there's no point at which we have to draw and say everything here is pseudoscience. But that's my only point of disagreement in the entire video. Apparently she, like I do too, regular readers know, I'm always criticizing these scientific papers that come out. Last week we did the, I think it was last week, these Chinese scientists, I think we're trying to pull a fast one, saying that once climate change hits, minorities, especially black people, are going to end up eating a quarter teaspoon, not quite a quarter teaspoon more of sugar a day once climate change hits. That level of science is absolutely rotten science. It's rotten because, first of all, the premises are all over the map. They're nonsense. They don't match reality. And the predictions, of course, won't match reality. It's preposterous. The whole thing is ludicrous. So that's bad science. She called somebody else out for bad science. And this person, a man I guess it is, I've forgotten who it was incensed. And became a Karen about the whole thing and started to call up her employer, or who he thought was Sabine's employer. You got to talk to her about her bad behavior or whatever. But it turns out whoever it was that he called, some Munich center for something or other, she had worked there or had contact with this place, whatever the name of it was, a long time ago in the past. But she's been independent, like I'm independent. You are my employers. I rely on donations alone and so forth, just as she does. And so this guy had failed in his quest to get her talking to. And the point of it is, her point of it was that they have all these. Her main interest is in particle physics. I've criticized particle physics many times too, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. And the difficulty with that science is there's too many scientists, there's just too much money. What they're doing is they're endlessly writing papers. They come up with a new premise about something, and they work out all the mathematical consequences of these things. And they produce yet another paper saying, if all of these things hold, and that's a perfectly reasonable statement, if all of these things hold, here is the way the universe really would look or works or something like this. Nothing wrong with that, except most of these things, the premises are just wrong. You won't find, almost never you will find a mathematical error in there. You're not going to find somebody like me who forgot to divide by 2 or came up with, although they have all kind of weird infinities floating around in there. You're not going to find errors in there, not mathematical errors or something like this. So a lot of this stuff is just absolutely useless. And a lot of these papers, she praised their falsifiability. Well, I've talked about falsifiability in the past. That's neither here nor there, because most of these papers will never be falsified, not in any bureaucratic sense. Nobody's going to go back and look at this flood of papers and say, well, this guy got it wrong, this guy got it wrong. They're just going to be ignored. I mean, the only reason these papers are being written is because scientists have to write papers. It really is publish or perish. They have to bring in grant money. They point to this massive papers that they have in a particular area which they've built up for themselves, built on these flimsy premises, this glorious mathematical structure, which is very difficult and beautiful, all that kind of stuff, no question about it, but it doesn't have anything to do with the world. And they point to all this massive research as evidence itself that it must be true, because otherwise all these scientists wouldn't be doing it. That's there's all kind of fallacies, that's the appeal to authority fallacy, but I call it the scientific method fallacy, because this is the real scientific method. This is science as how she is practiced and so forth. And meanwhile, we got guys like Leonard Susskind's coming out about string theory, for instance, saying, as it turns out, it doesn't have much to do with reality, but they have, I mean, I don't even know how many papers. I mean, it must run into the hundreds of thousands of papers, books, conferences, and the amount of money spent on these things, the amount of money that goes into the experimentation for these things. It boggles the mind and so forth. There's no getting around this. They've kind of got everything backwards. I mean, there's a delicate balance here. There's a point at which somebody sits down and thinks of a theoretical idea which makes predictions, which then experimentalists can go out and see whether or not it's true. But usually it's the other way around. Observations are made in the world and people want to explain them. And so what they're doing is they're coming up with all kind of fanciful new fields and particles and all that. You can always posit anything. It's like saying Bigfoot describes why the GDP is going down. You can always come up with fanciful explanations. It's absolutely always possible to do this, and I've neglected to talk about this in my class. I put it in the writing, but I didn't put it in the video lecture, that for any set of I've proven this to you many times already in class and so on. You could always come up with a set of a theory, an infinite number of theories, to explain any set of observations. I have done that many times for you in the past. I think I linked to it again. Easy proof of this kind of a thing. And so the scientist's job, if all his job is to come up with theories, well, we're going to have to give them an infinite amount of money to exhaust all the possible theories just for the observations that we have. And meanwhile, none of it's bringing us closer to understanding of how the world really works. I mean, there's just, again, the solution to this is stop having government grants, fund science. There's too many scientists. They have to publish or perish. The deans at the universities and other institutes rely on the overhead from the grants and everything to fund their projects and so forth, all of which is just money that's blown. We don't need to fund this kind of stuff. And that's not even the bad science. And that's before we even consider the bad science of the kind of stuff that I'm always showing you. I don't talk about these particle physics models a lot. I do sometimes, like in the preposterous ideas of multiverses and the like, because that involves philosophy. But there's not much to say about these other things. There's nothing to criticize in the math and so forth. But scientists are not just making, in other branches, they're making even dumb math mistakes. They're using bad evidence. They're doing all kind of things. There's just too much science. I don't know how else to put this. If you followed me regularly, I can't show you everything. I've lectured on this time and time again. So that's all I'm going to say about that now. So I'm happy to agree with Sabine. Usually I'm disagreeing with her. She's making some video. I'm here to tell you that I chose to make this video to tell you that you can't make any choices, and that once we all understand we can't make any choices, we'll all make better choices. So she's even slaves to some of these models herself, not seeing it. And we all need to get ourselves away from the slavery to these bad models and come up with a new philosophy, a new philosophy of nature, which of course I think is an old philosophy of nature. But that's for another time. Thank you very much for listening.